Welcome to another episode of Anyone Can Cook. Today, we're gonna make something that is a mainstay of every Filipino home. And let's admit it, the lechon is part of every Cebuano in celebrations, in baptisms, in birthdays. But guess what? I'm gonna teach you how to do it in your own home with a beautiful pork belly, rolled, stuffed with Cebu Chorizo, some nuts, some mushroom, full flavor and beautiful in presentation. So in the next few minutes, come follow me as we journey through the story of the pork. The ingredients you will need are as simple and basic as you can see. You will need a slab of pork belly, and you would like to ask from the butcher at least a minimum of 2 kilos so that you can get something as square as this. Depends on the thickness, but if you look at this pork belly, it's got a beautiful top layer of fat that's going to crinkle and cackle as it goes through the heat. But I'm gonna show you more in the next couple of minutes. You'll need basic onion, garlic, tarragon, yansoy, coriander, some mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, some nuts. In this case, I used pine nuts, some raisins or prunes. And then I found in the grocery, and you can find it in any local store, Cebu Chorizo. So I'm getting all those flavors combined together to achieve a beautiful roasted stuffing inside our pork belly. And also, of course, I have ground beef that's going to be part of our journey of the pork. A little bit of stale bread or old bread that you've been keeping in the house. So all these ingredients, all dedicated to the pork right here. So let's start, and I'll show you how we do this. Here we are with our pork belly, and what you see is that it's got so many layers of the meat, the flesh, and then the layer of top fat. And you know what it is? The fat is so hard of the pork that we want to teach you how to score it. Score is a term used in a culinary term, and you really want to just grab the sharpest of your knives, and I'm gonna take my knife a little much sharper by using, and just you want to achieve like a sharp finish when you score it. And scoring means what I want to do, because what I'm gonna roll it, I'm gonna score it from top to bottom, and you will see you just want to make fine lines to create position for design. 1, 2, to have the steam come out so that when the meat starts to cook, it has a crackling and it's not too tough. So these pockets of lines creates breathing spaces for the meat. And that way your seasoning and all of that can penetrate as well, because you know, the skin of a pork, wow, it's like leather. I mean, like you've heard of how they make leather, right? So when they go through the tannery, so you want to achieve just these beautiful lines on the pork so that when you do rub your seasoning or you do a nice rub, it gets seasoned together. And what this is actually very therapeutic for me. And I think for those in the kitchen, because it creates like a little harmonious meditation, and you're just like creating lines and just linears to have this pork get prepared for its marination. See, if you see what I'm creating here, it's not necessarily lines that are right beside each other. So this is how pork gets scored. See, if you look at that, you'll see I have created pockets of space so that the pork goes through its marination process. The next thing I want to do is to create a pocket. So in between the meat and the fat, get in there and you create and find the middle ground. And you're gonna go in there as skillfully and as light as possible to separate the meat from the fat. But you want, I like actually, a clean cut. So I try to get in between the fat, where the fat rests, and the meat. And it's right there. Okay, you notice I left a little bit in there, and what I want to do now is to marinate it. Get salt, pepper, some spice, whatever you have as your marinating agent inside the belly that we've cut. And I'm going to put that on the bottom. And I'm going to put that on the top. And I'm going to let it sink in there, like get that salt rubbed inside. And you know, you'll find the salt, and because of the meat and its fat, you can get a good rub of salt in there. I'm going to show you. We're going to let it rest and open up while it massages. You massage it into like a bed. So the next step, I get the salt over here. Woohoo. The next step, I'm right beside the frying pan. I'm just gonna get some oil in the pan and get some garlic, and I'm gonna mash, and that's gonna go in there. My red onion, and I'm just gonna give a rough chop to get the flavor and to saute and to sweat the onions, you know, to give it fragrance, It's really what it is. And to get like a base component of flavors going. And the tactic when you do the onion, you just create little wedges, and you create like a line, and then while you're at this, you want to get the mushrooms. 2, 3, 4 more mushrooms, so much better for everyone. And you just need to get a rough chop. And you know what's nice, when you roast mushrooms, it actually has a very earthy quality that gives dynamics and complexity to your stuffing. So this is where I want to go with this. Get the mushrooms in there, just a rough chop. See, you'd like to get this as fine as possible, only because you want it to not overpower or make it too big for the stuffing. Because stuffing is supposed to be good to the bite. You don't want like this piece of mushroom that's hanging off when you're biting into this meat. So I try to get this into fine, equal cuts. You look at that. Let's get all the beautiful mushroom chop, and it's gonna create all these earthy components. And you know what it is really to caramelize. So I have some nuts, and I'm using pine nuts today. And I'm just gonna get them in there as well. I'm gonna get some prunes or something that's of a fruit or like a dried fruit quality to create the sweetness. So I get that prepared in my dish. I'm gonna get the Cebu Chorizo, which you find in any local grocery stores, and I have some old salami and some beautiful smoked salami from yesterday's meal that I'm going to include for all these dynamic flavors. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to puncture it in there. I'm going to puncture it, and it's just going to get in there with all the flavor. Roast it together, but I don't want to fully roast it, only because remember we still need to put this in the oven. So I'm gonna get all the flavors I can and want to get in there to create such a beautiful component of dynamic and complexity and texture. Really, that's really what we want to achieve. Like a beautiful roasted stuffing. See, if you look at that, it's all in the same texture. And while the meat gets, and you see all the caramelization, and then get your stuffing in there. I'm just going to use all this salami. Just add it there for equal depth. You see we have, which is our ground beef. So you get a little bit of a handful, maybe like 500 grams in there, and you just mix it in there. Get all those flavors caramelized. You puncture it in there. So all the sweet, the savory, the flavorful. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna let it sit for a while. I don't want to cook it through because remember, this goes inside the meat. This goes inside the stuffing of the meat. And we want the textures there, and we want the caramelization. See, if you can smell this kitchen right now, it smells like the aroma of home, like roasted spices, earthy, herby, full of like a grandma's delight. And it's always nice to have your home smelling like paradise, really. That's really what it is. While we're at it, I'm gonna get the tarragon, and then I'm gonna get the cilantro, and give a good chop of herbs inside this beautiful stuffing. See how it creates complexity? We got the pine nuts in there, we got the Cebu sausage, we got ground beef, ground pork. So many components and flavors go inside this stuffing that on its own, if you cook it through, it's ultimately going to be a meal already on its own. You get in there, lower your heat, and you'll start to see all of that breaking into each other. When it breaks into each other, you see the golden caramelization from the nuts, from the prunes, from the spices, tarragon, coriander. So you get that in there, and you see how it's falling upon itself. We are basically 75% on its way. I'm gonna let that sit in there because I want the flavors to caramelize and to develop more. And we're gonna work on our breadcrumbs. I'm gonna create maybe 2 cups of breadcrumbs to go in this. And then get a cup of milk. And this is gonna develop together. See, what I want to create is a stuffing that is not dry, a little bit moist, and it's still going to go through another level of cooking when we stuff it together. Okay, you need to let that, allow it to cool. And I'm going to get 2 eggs on this dish to bind the stuffing together. Wow, if you can smell what this kitchen smells like right now, it's amazing. Grab the eggs, and if you look at that, that's the consistency you want to be left with. You see, nothing too dry, nothing too wet or moist, and it's still got a grain and a texture. 2 eggs on its way, and you just let it develop and sit. Oops. Voila. And it's kind of like Play-Doh. You know, if my daughter was here, she'd be like, Mom, can I do it? And you know, this is the part where you need to let it cool down and have the eggs bind it. The next step. So, you see, this is the roasting pan. I'm gonna cook it in, and I'm just gonna scrape the stuffing and let it sit. Kind of like make a sandwich out of this 2 sides of the pork. But if you look at that, that's exactly the consistency I want when I want to get in there. So you need to create that beautiful components of flavors, which is what we've done right here. And you see, I thought it wouldn't fit, but if you look at that, it sits. See, I don't want to keep it too much in the end because we are going to flatten this baby on top of each other. And there's a lot of symmetry and play that's accompanied with this. Here we go. So you want to make sure that when you fold it onto each other, you have the fat side on its back. And now, it's on its front. You see? If you look at my scoring, this is exactly where I want to just give more definition to the lines. So I'm going to go in there and going to clean that up by making it more defined, right? Here's the part where it gets tricky. You'll all need string. I found it in my daughter's closet. The reason why it's thin string, because we actually need to wrap and test our Girl Scout skills or Boy Scout skills. So I want to achieve that when I roll, the top side, meaning the skin, is the one facing outwards. Because I'm doing that, I'm gonna roll this on its back and begin Like literally begin a roll. I'm gonna achieve it like that. And what I'm gonna do, because this will come undone, I need to get our string. See how beautiful that comes into like a symmetry? And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty in there. And I'm just gonna get the string. Woohoo! And I'm gonna take the top side and the bottom. I'm gonna tie it and double knot it. I'm gonna use that as my base, the double knot, so it doesn't outdo on itself. And I'm gonna wrap it. Woohoo! This is the part that gets a little bit complicated, but it tests all sorts of control skills. See? And then you want to get your hand in there to get on the middle. Voila. And I'm going to get in there because the stuffing is coming out. And roll it underneath to its second formation. Voila. Gosh, it gets a little bit messy, but I tell you, it's worth it to keep the bind in there as it cooks. See, you get a little stuffing that comes out, and you just pluck that back in. I could go a little bit on a bigger roll, like a barrel, or I can go in this level. I'm very happy with this kind of roast. And right now, it looks like a pocket pillow. You know, if you're happy with this, then this is what you should settle for. This is where I want to go with it. And I'm just gonna make sure that before going in the oven, because this is all gonna come out in its seams, a little bit of cleanup. That wasn't too hard, no? And we get this and we put it in the oven. So the meat goes in the oven, and we're gonna wait 3 hours. And while we wait the 3 hours, it took us 20 minutes to prepare, stuff it, roll it, tie it with string, and then I'm gonna go off to make a cocktail for myself. Simple as that. The whole slab, stuff it, roast it, season it in the oven, and I come back and it should be cooked. See you in a bit. Here we are, and voila, coming out of the oven, hot, roasting, crackling. And seriously, 10 minutes on the gratinate achieved this crisp that everyone wants in roasted pork. Take it, and you hear that? There, that is where we want to go. I'm going to just slice it because this went through 3 hours of roasting to achieve. And I'm having a very hard time having to see, but the evidence is there. You see, I'm not even pressing down. And this roast is coming off the bone. So what I'd like to do is to get a slice, crisp, right there, and all its amazingness, solid kako. Beautiful adventure. I will serve it with some greens, some gravy, and a little bit of the pate that I created from the stuffing. Caramel, sizzle, soft, dribble, dizzle, all of the adjectives above, and it hits the tongue, it hits the palate, and I bet you 3 hours is exactly what you need. You come back to, and it emerges all the full powerful flavors of what we created. So come guys, give me some privacy, give me some space. Let me finish.